Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Big Sis. Now, I'm Big Sis Ange,
Big Sis Val.
and you guys are tuning into the newest episode. So, we are talking today about putting yourself out there, What comes to mind, Val, when you think of this? Like, what's something you just, instantly think of?
Yeah, instantly, right off the bat, I'm like, nervous. I'm like, jitters. Even though I've already been putting myself out there on social media, I still do get that little, instant fear, but it kind of, dwindles away, or I have learned to kind of, diffuse it and, let it pass over time as I get more experience. So,
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I even, I was thinking that too. I'm like, ooh, just thinking about, trying something new just gets you so nervous. And like you said, I think one of the things that we have to learn over time is to make that nervousness almost more of an excitement moment, because you're trying something new, and that new opportunity may be something you needed, or maybe it's just something you've been needing to do for a while, and you're just, nervous about it, but you do it, and you're like, okay, once I get past this feeling of accomplishment that no one can take away from me,
Yeah, no, exactly. And maybe you need to do it just because it'll grow your business, or maybe it'll get you out of your comfort zone, and you'll find more about yourself, which has happened to me. And I'm sure you can agree on that as well. It's going to come either way, that little fear or that little nervousness, because we hold our social media to a high standard. I mean, social media is really big nowadays. So, it's really hard not to compare and to, get a little nervous when you put yourself out there like that. What are some of the ways you started putting yourself out there? Maybe like baby steps, or, did you just do it and just jump in the water and hopefully you can swim? Or how did you, get over that?
Yeah, I find myself that when I get into that emotional feeling of overwhelming feeling, whatever you want to call it, I just have to just do it. I tell myself, Angie, just do it. Jump into the pool, fuck it, cold,
drown.
Drown. I'll learn how to swim. I have to be a little bit tough on myself, because if I think about it, the more I think about it, the less I'm gonna do it. When I first started, I was just I'd be in my head in the car, on my way. I'd be already in my head.
Same. Yeah.
Finally, when I just pull up, I'm like, okay, Angie, I'm giving you a second to sit in this car. You get out and you just start walking to that first door. And that's exactly what I did. And then once you talk to that one first person, you're like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think I did your method too, eventually, but I am that person that will think about it and, eventually talk myself out of it. Just because I'm still building that confidence, or I still was, especially when I was door knocking. I did sit in my car for 15 minutes, stalling on my phone, trying to get rid of apps that I don't know. But I did end up walking up to the door and knocking, and I was shaking. I was like, what am I gonna do? No, but I was so new, and and then I obviously looked new, but you know what? Everybody was so nice to me, and everyone was just like, yeah, well, thank you. I'm like, thanks for not yelling at
me. I know, sometimes it's not as bad as we imagine it to be.
It's not, and you have a good conversation, and then you're like, okay, this is good. You get in the flow.
Exactly. That's a good point, that we can kind of take this into that area where we overthink, and we just think of the worst possible scenarios. In our case, we're thinking we're gonna get yelled at, we're gonna get cussed out, someone's gonna come out with a gun. I don't know, something crazy, But then you knock on the door, and then it's this sweet older woman, and you're like,
stop.
I was worried about.
Yeah.
Man, bless your soul.
Bless your soul. Yeah, seriously. And then you leave happy and excited that you actually persevered and went through with it. 100%.
100%. Yeah. All the way. And I think another thing I wanted to mention was something that kind of gets me out of my head is before I start thinking about those negative thoughts, start creating those scenarios in my head, I like to think, okay, Angie, you're feeling this emotion of nervousness, fear, that someone else that I look up to also felt at some point.
Okay.
So I'm no different.
Okay.
It's not like I'm trying to sit there and play a victim of how I feel in the moment. Like I just got to get past that feeling and just do it. And that's why that helps me get out of my head before I even like start creating those thoughts, because I know they're coming because I can feel
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I
And
like that.
let's think of something else. Let's think of something else.
I like that. Yeah. So, okay. So basically what you're saying is your strategy is once you start feeling it, which is going to come, it's inevitable. It's going to come no matter what.
Right?
Once you start feeling it, you recognize it and then you use it as leverage to kind of excite you to like, that challenge or whatever you're about to overcome.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that. I'm
What's
stealing. I'm like, well, I kind of do about that way too. I know it's going to come either way. So I kind of just like want to get it over with, like get that feeling over with and kind of push it to the side. But I like that how you like kind of use it as fuel to, reframe it. Instead of fear, you're like excited about it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
before you even give yourself a slightest second to like get into
Like doubt
you're
or
gonna
like
stop.
feel insecure about it or like whatever, just like be like, all right, this was felt before with the greatest people, the most successful people. They felt this exact moment. So, there's two ways to go about it. You can go up or you can go down. So might as well. I like that, Angie. You got the golden nuggets today.
Yeah. So the reason why I don't like to even give myself a second to just think about it, because I feel like we get stuck in that analysis paralysis stage.
Yeah.
And I think I was more that way with the phone calls. Like for a while, it was hard for me to just like dial, just freaking dial. It's
Yeah.
easy for me to like walk towards the door versus like pressing that little button. You're just like,
And then it starts dialing. You're like, I'm just
and
kidding.
it's literally like you're your own worst enemy. You're like, ah, no.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? That's literally
Yes. That's why it's hilarious. I'm like, yes, I felt that way. The music starts playing. You're like, oh my God.
Oh man. If anyone's watching this on YouTube or not, you guys need to see what we just did, because that was just great.
I know. Like, oh my gosh. So relatable. I'm sure anyone in business or anyone who cold calls, yes, you can relate.
Any kind of like situation you're in, like even if I don't know, you're trying something new as far as like a sport, or I don't know, like I'm right now, like I mentioned, I've been doing Muay Thai, and I recently have started sparring. And let me just say, like, I get so nervous, but yesterday I finally felt like the confidence where I'm like, okay, whatever, this is what it's for. I'm here to learn. Like, this is a place
Confident.
I can confidently make an error here and learn from it
Yes.
versus like
Yes.
out in the field and like, getting my ass whooped. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Dude, yeah, no, exactly. And that's why I did some form of martial arts or boxing or like self-defense, because when in the real world, when in doubt, I want to just have at least minimum the confidence to handle the situation as best as I could, you know.
Yeah. And those things you get past, and I'm talking about that feeling, that fear. Once you get past that feeling, and the only way you can really do that is just by doing it consistently. If you do it like once a week, once a month, or I don't know, every other day, like you're still going to feel that jittery feeling regardless, but it'll lessen over time. That's my experience, especially when it comes to dialing or door knocking.
Definitely. Yeah. It's almost like just autopilot. Like you just do it and then you're like, it's still like kind of there, but it's more like you've done it so many times that the like little fear button that presses, it's like so tiny. It's like not even, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like it's still there, but it's just like, nah, I got you.
And a perfect example of that, I think, would be like, you drive every day. And when you first started to drive, how much of a big deal was it? It was like, oh my God, making these left turns in these traffic lights. I don't know how I can do this. But
I don't know how I could do this. Yeah. It's crazy.
Like, we forget when we're driving. Like, we can't even remember in that moment because you're just stuck in like autopilot. Like, it's just
That's so crazy. I was literally just thinking about that, like how I'm just driving so like just not even thinking. I'm singing. I'm like looking over here, wow, what's that? Making like, and I'm like on autopilot, and it's like almost second nature,
And then
Yeah.
before you know it, you're like, how did I get here? Like,
Yeah.
how did I make it alive? I just like don't even remember.
The whole 20-minute ride, you're like, what? I'm already here? Okay, cool. Anyway, that's so true. That's a good example.
Yeah, but any other final thoughts on this, Val? Or, I mean, I know we're talking about putting ourselves out there, which we talked about the feeling of, before you do it. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the afterward feeling. What
Yeah.
comes after you get past that?
Yeah, I like that. That actually takes me back to my first YouTube video. I just did it, and I had no idea what I was like saying, doing, what my intentions were. I mean, I kind of knew a little bit just to like talk about myself and, my journey. But yeah, I was like, just do it. And, looking back on it now, I was kind of cringy and kind of just like, but the point is I did it, and put myself out there, right? And you're going to get, negative or positive feedback, but either way, like you just have this, like, you stand a little bit taller almost, because you're like, okay, well, you didn't have the balls to put yourself out there and put a video up. Okay, well, did you record yourself cold calling a video? No. So why are you like commenting? You know what I mean? So at least you are a step further than, I'm not saying all these other people, but, for yourself, you kind of just like, you basically accomplish a goal for yourself, so.
I love that, because that's actually something I was just thinking right now, as you were saying that was, the reason you're doing these things, the reason why you're putting yourself out there is for a bigger purpose and a bigger reason. And those are your goals that you have in place. So I was actually listening to Brian's lecture, and he was talking about this in particular, where it was like, there's a difference between commitments and your goals. And your commitment is to obviously pick up the phone and call or go door knocking. But the reason you have those commitments are to meet your goal. Without those commitments in place, you're probably not going to touch your goal.
Exactly.
So what's worse? Not touching your goal or getting there or getting close?
Exactly. And so just know that whether you fail or, don't do as well as you thought, maybe, you're still getting that much closer to your goal. You're still failing forward. You're still getting closer to your goal, and you will get there as long as you keep reflecting and learning from your past videos or however you're marketing yourself, and you get that much better each time. Like it's a win-win,
100%. And I love that.
100
on there. Girl,
yes. Yeah.
Be 100 today. Be 100.
I mean, honestly, Angie, look how far we've come. I mean, for example, this podcast. I mean, who would ever have thought we would be, what episode are we in? How did you, like,
I can't remember.
You're like, I don't even know, but we've been doing it consistently.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, putting ourselves out there, like, imagine, like, how many, imagine the future, how we're going to be, like, because we've already started putting ourselves out there at a young age, on video, on social media, business wise, and podcast wise. Like, what the heck? Look at this.
I mean, sure, there's probably some intention behind our podcast where, we want to have the right audience and gravitate towards our little sisters here. But at some point, like, whether or not it pays off, then that's great. I just love that we were able to put ourselves in this position to do so, where most people will just stay quiet and won't like say much, I guess, or won't try to be a good influence on the social media, I guess,
Yeah. Or this will be like a thought to them, but they never execute or try it out. Or maybe they did for like a day or two and it didn't work, and they're like, you know what, I knew it's not for me. Like, just really like persevere and just like push through and really try what you want to do, because your passion will shine through from it, and it'll just show,
Yeah, over time.
Yeah. We're like, ooh. Ooh. Woo! Getting hot in here. I'm just kidding.
But I guess we'll just wrap it up here. Again, as always, if you guys have any sort of questions or maybe want us to talk about something in particular you're going through, bigsisquestion@gmail is the way to go. So holla at us. We're here for you, baby sis.
Yes.
See you guys on the next one.
Yes. Catch you guys later. Bye.